Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to the podcast The Storm. We're social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all our nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, everyone, and sorry for the delay.
And I am your host, last time lone wannabe, the brainstormer of pop culture. Yeah, I personally want to apologize for that simply because that is kind of on me. So since Saturday, I've been kind of very sick. It was actually really rough the first 3 or 4 days. But I've been taking I've been taking medicine, eating as best I can, getting a lot of sleep and stuff. And today I felt better enough to at least attend. And I did make sure to eat and take some medicine before the stream started, just so I could be a little better in order to interact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do want to apologize for that. Just I had to kind of focus on taking care of myself because I did not want to end up vomiting on stream or something, or just have a constant coughing fit.
Yeah, that would have certainly been that would have certainly been no bueno.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully by this upcoming Sunday, which we will be doing podcast 173. I'll be completely done with this. Hopefully, we'll see.
And if he dies or something in the interim, I'm going all necromancy on his ass. So don't worry about that.
But yeah, so we got kind of a stacked lineup. Most of it Dalton sent me. I only have one thing, and that's just the positive thing because Dalton likes delving into the cringe all the time because he's a glutton for punishment.
It brings me joy to smack the shit out of people for being stupid. So, there. Also, it tends to be entertaining for the audience when we smack the shit out of people for being stupid. But, yeah, Brainstormer does like to end things on a palate cleanser that reminds us that everything is not entirely stupid. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess, shall we?
Yeah. And for those curious why we're not covering some of the more completely fucktarded things that happened this week, because of how we had to move the show around this week, those things will be covered next week. So the really, really stupid things that you're probably thinking we'll cover will be covered next week.
Yeah.
But we do have them trying to go back to the Gamergate well over the Amber Heard thing again. So
well, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
I also want to mention shit, I had it, but I lost it. And it'll come back to me. I'm not gonna try to force it. All right,
Oh,
so this something Dolan sent me. It's from IGN.com. Author apologizes after Miles Morales' Thor comic receives backlash. So I remember seeing a lot of stuff. Oh no, what the fuck?
curse you ads!
I was trying to pause it. I didn't know if that was gonna get us a thing or something.
Mm.
So okay. Yeah, I saw a lot of this. A lot of people talking about it on Twitter. I didn't really care because, well, honestly, I stopped caring about Marvel a long time ago in terms of comics.
Which is just sad at this point.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. So, shall we move on? Or
I wanted to throw this in just before we even get into the subject matter. Like, I find it annoying this idea that we can now just take Miles Morales and shove him into any superhero shoes in what if stories thing. Like, I know that's, as old as the fucking hills, and I know there's universes where Tony Stark was the Sorcerer Supreme, or where Doctor Strange becomes Iron Man or some shit. But the thing about those is, number one, they were always stupid. And you can fight me on that all you like, but usually stories where one character gets another character's power set is inherent. They're inherently stupid. But more so with Miles, even because um while Miles is definitely not an SJW character and never was, um trying to take him, who is the successor for Spider-Man, and put him in the shoes of literally every other major character does really give you the impression that him being Spider-Man was never important to his character, and that he can literally just be a placeholder for any diverse version of these heroes, which is bullshit. Like, making him the successor to Spider-Man because he, as a character, really looks up to Spider-Man, that makes sense, and that is an SJW. But making him Captain America and Thor and every other fucking character does reduce him down to being an SJW character, which is shit. That being said, I've looked into the Thor comic in question, and apart from the fact that it trivializes Miles as a character and the fact that these what if we took one character and gave them another character's powers concept is inherently stupid by itself. Um, I didn't find anything particularly objectionable about it, but then again, I am not a moralistic twit who's motivated by nothing but ideology. So, without further ado, I guess let's get into it.
yeah. So the subheader is: I hope this moment will promote better authenticity. I believe that might be a quote from the author.
I mean, it it really, really depends on what you mean by authenticity. And I will grandstand over the word authenticity because I'm the authenticator. That's what I do. Um, and I hate to be this guy, but I hereby revoke your ability to use that word on the basis that you are using it in a poor context. Because what he means, or what the author seems to mean based on this context, is I want to create characters who are the platonic avatars of these various demographic hive minds. And that's bullshit. That's not what authenticity means. Authenticity should mean, or I guess I should say it's not what it should mean. there is a context in which it does mean that, but that context is dumb. What authenticity should mean is three-dimensionality and autonomy for characters, as in make them like real people with real lives and real like idiosyncrasies and crap. Don't make them the platonic avatars of blackness or gayness or whiteness or any other like okay, again, this goes back to one of my oldest chestnuts here. Demographics and identities based on demographics are not, should not, and have never been teams. There is no black hive mind or blackness that every black person needs to aspire to. There is no whiteness that every white person is condemned to aspire to. There is no gayness that every gay person is like platonically obliged to be puppeteered by or anything like that. Enough with this quasi-platonic demographic hive mind bullshit. Demographics are not and should not be and never were teams. Fuck off with it. But that being said, I didn't find anything explicitly objectionable about the Miles Morales Thor. And in fact, honestly, I'm gonna get all kinds of hate for this. I think he actually looks better as a version of Thor than he does as Spider-Man. Miles Thor is very cute, but that's neither here nor there. Moving on.
Yeah. Also, this is written by Ryan Liston, and this was published June 23rd, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Miles Morales is about to return to the big screen in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So what better way to celebrate than with a special Spider-Man crossover comic?
It's not at all. It's a what if. What if Miles Morales was Thor? Which just goes to show you how little research the IGN journalist did. Or maybe they're being sarcastic, who knows. But anyway, moving forward.
Right. Okay. Unfortunately, the recent issue, What If Miles Morales Was Thor, didn't quite live up to expectations, with comic book fans calling out the comic over its caricature, past tense.
Caricatured.
Yeah. Depictions of black people. Now, writer, I'm going to butcher this, and I'm sorry. Yehudi Mercado has responded to the backlash. Again, if I said the name wrong, I'm very sorry.
It's not just you. He struggles to do every kind of name under the sun. Like for the first 5 or 10 shows we did, he mispronounced my last name like 3 times.
Yeah, I think I said Mortimer.
Yes. And
the thing is, you never really corrected me.
It's because I'm ironically used to people mispronouncing my name. Except most people mispronounce it Mortimer, which I don't even know how the fuck they get that from that.
I don't know why, but I always thought there was like an E, not an E, an I with the ER at the end of your name.
Ah, okay. Well, regardless, everyone fucking mispronounces my name, and it was at least an interesting mispronunciation, so I didn't feel the need to correct you at first. But and also I didn't, and I really didn't want to be a dick to you while we were on stream. But one of the days when we were just hanging out, I mentioned that you mispronounced my name a lot, and then you tried to stop, which, to your credit, you did. But yeah, he doesn't do well with mispronouncing anyone's name.
Well, here's the thing.
It's not.
It's hard to pronounce a name when I read it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to actually say it. If it's said to me, then I can say it.
Yeah,
Which I think
but
it's really anyone.
just for the sake of clearing my friend's name here, he struggles to mispronounce everyone's name, so
I'm terrible at like English language anyway. It's not even like it's the language I speak, but I'm terrible at it.
I mean, in your defense, everyone in the modern age is terrible at it because we have lost the ability to properly structure English language in
True.
any meaningful way. Like compare like 19th century letters to what people say in tweets, and you'll have a demonstration for just how degenerated our understanding of the English language has become.
Fair enough. Anyway.
But I wanted to say a thing before we got too far. The reason.
Sorry, Ed. I just clicked back to. Yeah. Hi, Ed.
Yeah.
Famous people change their names back in the day so folks can relate better. That can't be good for a writer.
No, to be fair, it probably isn't. But yeah. So sorry, Ed. We just didn't see you there.
Yeah, that's my
But
bad.
yeah. Well, welcome to the show. But anyway, the reason that this whole representation thing, as it is currently being defined, is so difficult is because if you play a diverse character as though they're just like their non-diverse counterpart, i.e., if Miles Morales Thor just acted like Thor, you'd get people complaining that he wasn't black enough, in that he didn't change the way he acted based on his demographic, and you'd get people complaining that he was internalizing whiteness, or the character was just a palette swap. But if you have a character that embraces their stereotypes and embraces blackness, quote unquote, then you wind up in this situation where they act too stereotypically black. But the problem is this racial, or this demographic hive mind thing that modern day moralities and ideologies do is stuck in kind of a catch-22 situation, whereby if they don't embrace the stereotypes, then they're internalizing whiteness. But if they embrace the stereotypes too much, then it's too much of a stereotype. And the problem is there is no universal language of blackness apart from the cultural things they have in common, which eventually translate themselves into stereotypes. It's like, showing a black character to be the type of person who enjoys eating, Caribbean food and watermelon and fried chicken, is bad. But if you avoid showing a black character ever enjoying those things, then that's them internalizing whiteness, and that is also bad. So the only answer is the sensible answer of fuck all this demographic hive mind bullshit. Write the characters as the characters. And if Miles Morales is the type of character who enjoys, I don't know, hip hop music or something, or talks, street, for lack of a better word, then let him do that. If he's not the kind of character who likes those things, then don't force him to do that, but don't make him deliberately shun them either, because that's not true to his character either. It's almost as though characters should be treated like individuals with their own individual personalities and individual backgrounds, or something. Moving on.
I've taken the last few days to step back and listen and acknowledge your criticism for my recent issue of What If Miles Morales was Thor, he said via Twitter. While I've lived a different experience through my own Jewish and Mexican background, I still know inauthenticity hurts. And I'm sorry this failed on that front.
And once again, as the authenticator, I hereby revoke your ability to use the word authenticity. You're using it wrong, and you're using it to make it sound stupid. Stop using it. Because here's the thing. Authenticity in this worldview means it correctly represents the overall hive mind, the platonic ideal of whatever demographic concept we're playing with. In this case, blackness. But the problem is that platonic ideal you made up is something you made up. Because it doesn't, and it changes with the wind and it changes with subjectivity because it doesn't meaningfully exist. Actual platonic concepts aren't like that. Actual platonic concepts are essentially boiled down to mathematics when all is said and done. Actual fundamental a priori or axiomatic concepts of the kind that you would actually find in Platonic philosophy aren't like that. But these ideals are entirely arbitrary constructions, and thereby there is no meaning to be had in these constructs because these constructs don't meaningfully exist or apply to anything. You can't, and this is where we once again run into the issue of if you truly believe that there's some platonic ideal of, this overarching concept of blackness, then you have two options. You can appropriate other cultures and internalize and make and own them as black, in which case blackness controls everything, and therefore you can appropriate any neutral thing to become part of your thing. Or you can define blackness as embracing the culture and the stereotypes, in which case you'll wind up with characters like this version of Miles Morales, who is literally a black stereotype, because the stereotypes and cultural commonalities are the only thing that can meaningfully be called blackness in this fucked up demographics as hive minds worldview. The correct answer, in my humble opinion, is these demographic hive minds don't fucking exist because demographics are not teams. But what the fuck do I know? Because otherwise you wind up limboing under a bar that can kill you no matter which way you go under it. Too much black stereotypes, then you're being a stereotype, and that's bad. Not enough black stereotypes, you're internalizing whiteness. That's also bad. What is the meaningful choice to do other than discard the construct of the demographic hive mind entirely and treat the characters like individuals? Because that's the only logically consistent answer I can come up with. If blackness can get you either way, or whiteness can get you either way, then why are we acting as though these things exist when they can't meaningfully be demonstrated to exist? Moving on.
Hello, Dragon Turtle. It says sorry he's late, IRL stuff. And yeah, I'm feeling a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. Ed also said, imagine walking that fine line tightrope. And I agree.
That assumes there is a sweet spot. Although he spelled
yeah, but that's the thing. Either you engage in the eternal hunt for the Holy Grail sweet spot, or you realize that there's an ideological axiom in the way here, and that demographics aren't teams or ideologies, i.e., there is no universal language of blackness, there is no universal language of whiteness, there is no universal language of gayness, and on and on and on we go. Demographics are not teams. That to me is the only logically consistent answer to this issue. Instead of playing the am I serving the demographic hive mind well enough game, you could just decide not to play it and treat characters like individuals with their own individual personalities. Moving on, though.
Yeah. I've appreciated hearing and learning from my Black and Puerto Rican comics peers, and hope to use this moment to help promote better authenticity. He added, I'm also going to donate what Marvel paid me to the Brooklyn Book Bodega, which works to build literacy and get more books to kids in New York.
Okay, I'm fine with his charitable, donations and whatnot, but the reasons he's doing it are completely foobar. It's literally, forgive me for I have sinned, but I'm buying an indulgence. This is the social justice equivalent of the much maligned attempt to go to confession and then buy an indulgence.
Yeah, I always forget that Miles Morales is half Puerto Rican.
Yeah, it's almost as though I don't care because it's not material to the character generally.
Well, it's also never really brought up ever.
Yeah, they always just lump him into the overarching category of person of color, and he's half black mixed with something that isn't white, so it's never really brought up that he's also Puerto Rican. Because here's the thing: if it were actually brought up in a meaningful way, i.e., if it actually informed the character to some degree, like for example, if we saw him celebrating Mesoamerican or Puerto Rican festivals, like see him engage with Dia de los Muertos or something along those lines, or whatever Puerto Rican specific festivals similar to that there might be. That would be one thing. If you actually made the demographic informative of the character rather than just cucking to whatever perceived hive mind of the demographic you seem to think there is, that would be one thing. Like for example, they don't go on and on and on about how Hulkling and Wiccan are gay, other than to demonstrate that they are very much in love with each other, and that their romance is one of the sweetest in the Marvel Universe. That is how you actually make these things relevant to the character. Or another example, in Teen Titans, in Gwen Arakami's Teen Titans, there was an episode where the Titans ran across an alien who species had an issue with Starfire's race, the Tamaranians, and referred to her by a derogatory name that the other Titan didn't know was derogatory. And then she told them, and then they proceeded to kick the shit out of that guy because he was an asshole. And the character who was the most affected by this was Cyborg, because he knows what it's like to be otherized. And they don't go into the, it's just like racism. They don't force feed the information into your head, and they don't hammer you over the head with some ideological gobbledygook about it. They just understand that Cyborg, either through his inner city upbringing or through the fact that he's a half man, half machine monster, and that's consistent with how we found him in the pilot of the show. By the way, when we got their backstories, he was treated badly because everyone thought that he was a monster because he happened to be half man, half machine, which makes fucking sense and doesn't even need to allude to the racism, but it can add to it if you insist on seeing it there. That is how you actually make these things informative to the characters. Rather than cucking to ideological constructs and moral pecking orders, just make characters who are three-dimensional and have their own fucking lives and therefore their own motivations, which can inform their character conflicts as and when they happen. Duh.
Right.
Moving on.
Yeah. Miles Morales is now best known for the recent Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie, which saw Morales suit up in an alternate universe alongside various other incarnations of Spider-Man. The comic, written by Uedi Mercado, with art by Luigi Zagira, is part of Marvel's upcoming 60th anniversary celebration of the famous web slinger. I'm sorry if that's a celebration. What the fuck?
I don't understand how a what if where Miles is Thor is supposed to be celebratory. That doesn't, like, even in terms of celebrating shit, I would imagine the proper way to celebrate that would be to give him another Spider-Man series and have him cross over with Peter and have him be like nostalgic about things that happened in the past and basically do like a flashback or clip show issue where it talks about how far his character has progressed in the years since he first took up the mantle of Spider-Man. What is his relationship with Peter in his universe and so on? Like, that would be a meaningful celebration.
They moved Miles to main 616.
I know, but you could draw that connection where, like, he remembers being in the previous universe, or some MacGuffin happens that makes him remember that he used to be in a different universe. Like, there are 1,000 ways you could do basically a very sentimental, very like an anniversary issue, basically, of, this is Miles Morales' history and this is how his character has progressed since he, took up the mantle and so. But the problem is, especially in the last 10 years or so, no character has experienced meaningful character progression because they're not allowed to, because they're not actually treated like three-dimensional characters. They're treated like chess pieces that the writers can move around as and when they feel like it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard to do the look how far we've come then versus now type comics that would be meaningful anniversary issues, because there isn't much difference between Miles Morales circa like 2007 versus Miles Morales now, because the writers don't know how to do that shit. It's kind of part of the problem. So instead, what we get is several what if stories of Miles Morales, where in one what if he's Captain America instead of Spider-Man, and in another what if he's Thor instead of Spider-Man. Moving on, though.
Yeah. Of all the five realms, Asgard is his hood. He says at one point, he also shouts, "It's hammer time," while swinging his version of Mjolnir, which is covered in graffiti. The comic fans were having none of it. I mean, yeah, that's.
I mean, okay, minor geek quibble here. There are 9 realms. It's 9, not 5. Secondly, I think him shouting "it's hammer time" when he's about to kick ass is kind of funny. I can see why it didn't I can see why it didn't land well, but I think it's kind of fucking funny. Especially considering that what ifs are usually kind of semi-satirical. Because they're absurdist takes on what if this character was more like this character and so on. Like I get what the author was going for, and I get why it was also, foreboding in the modern zeitgeist and all. But if these people could put their morality aside for 5 seconds and just take the joke as a joke, there is potential here for it could have been funny. I'm honestly more mad that they mixed up the number of realms in the Thor franchise than about the It's Hammer Time thing.
Honestly, I'm more pissed off about the. I don't know. I don't like the art.
Yeah, well, Marvel's actually comics in general's art standards in recent years have been shit for at least since All New, All Different.
Like, okay, it's not bad. I'm not trying to shame the artist or anything. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't have that epicness that I've seen with like some Thor comics and stuff. And
Yeah, there's no effort being put in, and
I wouldn't say that. I don't know. It's
or
weird.
if it's being put in, it's being put in a nonsensical way.
Yeah, just the weirdest thing is it feels cartoonish, but not in a good way.
Not in a we're deliberately stylizing it to make it cartoonish way. It's just, well, comics are supposed to look like cartoons, right? Yeah, no. And even cartoons based on comics look better than this shit. Or they did when I was a kid. And I feel old now for having said that, but
Yeah, I was about to say.
but
Yeah.
but fuck you, the standards of the DC animated universe or Man of Action were fucking better than this. And anime standards that Western cartoons took inspiration from, in everything from Samurai Jack to Glen Arakami's Teen Titans to fucking Netflix's Castlevania to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Their art standards were also better than this, and I resent and shame the deliberate degression of art. And I do say deliberate because in many cases, when artists are called on, these art standards don't even live up to the standards of the 90s and early 2000s. They go on about how meritocracy is just a harmful standard and is, patriarchal and crap. So yeah, no, I'm not going to play this game where I don't notice the deliberate degeneration of art because meritocracy is bad, herder. Um, yeah, no, it isn't, and I know everyone is nostalgic for their childhoods, but in an objective, like mathematically demonstrable way, the art is less good than it was. So that's the wrong way around. If we're supposed to believe that history actually is supposed to progress, like we're contractually obligated to believe in this day and age, then I must ask, why the fuck does Paul Dini and Bruce Timm's work, or Man of Action's work, or Dwayne McDuffie's work look better than fucking modern day Marvel Comics?
All right. For record, I just remembered the art looks plain. I think it's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no stylization or conceptualization being put in. It's just I'm being told to draw a thing, so I'll draw the thing in like the loosest definition of competency I can. And then I'm like there's no actual care being put into the art itself. Like it used to be that an artist would try to put their stamp on any art piece. I mean, hell, there's a whole reason why we refer to Kirbyism as a thing. It's because you can tell when Jack Kirby is the one holding the pencil. Or even, this is this is the obligatory bad example, but still applicable. Rob Liefeld. For as bad and awfully proportioned as Rob Liefeld's art might be, it's still recognizably Rob Liefeld because he was at least trying something that meant he was putting his heart and soul into it. Didn't always work, like, Tommy Wiseau or Ed Wood. It doesn't always work when you put your heart and soul in something, but on balance, The Room or Ed Wood movies are better than movies that don't give a fuck. And in the same way, Rob Liefeld art is still better than art that doesn't try.
Right. All right. In an unfortunate twist, this particular issue of What If Miles Morales was the first to be penned by a non-black writer, with previous issues written by Cody Ziegler, Anthony Piper, and John Ridley. Okay, how's that?
Demographics are not teams, and demographic hive minds don't fucking exist. The fact that he's a black writer or a non white writer is immaterial to anything. The question should be, and usually is, when you're not an ideological, moralistic twit, are they good at the job, and can they actually demonstrate the character? Can they get in the mindset of the character or the world of the character? Can they produce good shit in relation to the character? These are the relevant questions. The fact that the person in question is not the right demographic is moralistic woo. It's kind of like back in the day, Christian, tradcon Christians would lose their shit anytime a writer or actor came out as an atheist or a non-Christian. Because how can we expect them to be moral or good if they're not Christian, herder? Well, this is the same thing, except for tradcon evangelical Christianity swap critical theory and Frankfurt School infused social justice. It's the same shit, just pointing in a different political direction. Moving on.
Thankfully, Morales should make a far less stereotypical return in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which sees him take on the multiversal villain Spot.
Oh, the Spot's going to be the villain for the next.
I don't know if it's going to be the villain, but I remember there was like a image posted of Miles fighting him, and it looks cool.
I like the Spot. The Spot is actually one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, and he never shows up, so cool.
Yep. Actually, there are a lot of really unique, underutilized characters in Marvel Comics. Not just villains.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of characters that could be cool if anyone would bother taking a second look at them. One of the most famous ones is probably Judas Traveler, who they started Judas Traveler as a Spider-Man villain, but in my mind, he'd work better as an X-Men villain or a Thor villain or maybe a Doctor Strange villain, because his powers are more like mystical or cosmic and or telepathic than like the kind that Spider-Man would usually deal with.
Yeah, Giant Turtle, guy who can use portals. It looks like a Dalmatian suit, his costume. Yeah. But I think in recent times they've replaced, because they used to have just the white eyes with the black spots around them, and now it's just one giant spot, and he's like a silent killer. I think.
Basically, if you remember Polka Dot Man from Suicide Squad 2, he can do kind of the same thing, except his dots are all black and white, and they function as like portals or like the black circles in Looney Tunes cartoons.
Yeah.
And he can kind of do similar to what one of our characters can do, or what Gore the God Butcher did in the most recent Thor movie, and he can he can sort of blend into darkness and use it as a weapon, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Cool.
All right. Well, next one's loaded. So, again, this is one Dalton sent me. It's from Kotaku.
Yep, Kotaku.
Kotaku.
And just that name should be giving some insight of what we're about to deal with.
Vilifying Amber Heard shows us we learn nothing from Gamergate. This is by Ashley Bardhan, published, I believe, June 22nd, 2022.
You are correct, Ashley, in the sense that you didn't learn a damn thing from Gamergate, in the sense that you keep vilifying it as though it's the internet's equivalent to terrorism, when it was actually the peasants trying to get the aristocracy to knock off the moralistic bullshit. And instead of learning this lesson, you're going to double down on the moralistic bullshit. And treating Gamergate like it was a fucking terrorist cell or some shit. Moving on.
Okay, so subheader is people can't stand imperfect women, not in the Depp versus Heard trial, or in games, or anywhere.
Say that again. That didn't register in my brain.
People can't stand imperfect women, not in the Depp v. Heard trial, or in games, or anywhere.
You mean they criticize women for their mistakes just like everyone the fuck else? Your issue is you can't acknowledge that women ever make mistakes. Because women have to be morally pure in all circumstances, even when they do villainous shit. Like, categorically, mustache-twirlingly villainous shit. Like, say, abusing the fuck out of her husband for several years, and then suing him over it. When he calls her on her bullshit. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. She's not a victim. Mariska Hargitay says in Law and Order SVU. Recent headlines say the same about Amber Heard. Heard said as much about herself, but Hargitay says she is not making this up.
Okay, the issue you're having here, my loves, is she's not a victim, number one, because victimhood is not synonymous with moral purity or sainthood to begin with, which is one of the areas where you're going wrong here. And the second place you're going wrong here is she's not the victim because she's likely the perpetrator. I.e., she's not the victim of the bad thing because she's doing the bad thing to someone else. Moving on.
I let Law and Order play on TV while I do other mindless things like scrubbing the floor or scribbling in my journal. Like other abuse victims I know, I find comfort in a TV show that pretends victims can really win. But hearing Hargitay say those words brought my attention back to our less paradisal reality, where Amber Heard,
but yeah.
paradisial reality, where Amber Heard, whose name has been like a neon bar sign at the back of my head for the past 2 months, is still glued to online vitriol.
Because she did a terrible thing, and she cannot demonstrate being equally affected by this terrible thing. I.e., she can't demonstrate that the violence was mutual, and to the minimal extent that she can, it very much seems like she was the primary instigator of the violent bullshit. And secondly, your framing there is disingenuous as well, because victims win all the fucking time. This nihilistic framing of reality you have is also a problem, because victims win all of the fucking time. Every story we have, from the most ancient of stories to the most modern of stories involves a victim being rescued by someone, being taken seriously by someone, being saved by someone, taking the power back from someone who's doing harm to them. Like, okay, as an example, the whole beginning salvo there of we can't stand imperfect women in video games herder. Sweetheart, have you ever played Mario? The entire premise of Mario is women is victimized by evil dragon creature. Man tries to save woman from evil dragon creature. Every Mario game features rescuing Princess Peach as a main fucking thrust of the plot.
Hey, Dom.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was referring to like actual court cases.
No, I know, but her opening piece was like, we can't stand imperfect women in reality or in video games and derp, 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 derp. So I'm unraveling her disingenuous framing. And also, again, the problem you have here, my dear, is that in the civilized western part of the world here, we have this standard known as innocent until proven guilty, and the other legal standard known as the burden of proof, which means you can't just accuse someone of something and that accusation to be unchallenged wholesale, because you actually have to demonstrate some kind of injury done to yourself. And I'm sorry if that makes it inconvenient for people who were genuinely victimized, but we we let some people off that actually deserve it than nuke the lives and reputations of people who don't actually deserve it. Because and this is the other thing, what you're talking about in the case of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp is domestic violence, which is a very, very serious accusation. If you accuse someone of domestic violence or rape or murder, and that accusation is believed, then you are as good as condemning that person to a life of misery and woe and everything they've ever had being taken away from them. Because those are some of the most severe crimes we can accuse other human beings of doing. And being as many crimes throughout human history have been motivated by retribution for those exact things, like, for example, lynching. Lynching was originally nothing to do with race. Lynching was originally a extra legal reaction to an accusation of rape. I.e., lynching was never motivated by, oh, he's the wrong color or some shit. It was motivated by a white woman, usually, feeling victimized by a black man and the community reacting to that feeling of victimization by murdering the fucking dude and hanging him from a fucking tree or some shit. And given that that is the nuclear power of domestic violence or rape accusations, we have to be very sparing with who we subject that treatment to. Because if we accidentally get the wrong person, or if no crime took place here, or if, even rarer, the crime is in fact inverted, i.e., the person claiming that they were abused was actually the abuser, we very much need to be aware of that, just like with the death penalty. That's why I'm not in favor of the death penalty, because if you give someone the death penalty and you're wrong or they're innocent, then you've actually murdered someone that didn't deserve to die. It's kind of a big deal, wouldn't you think? Anyway, moving forward.
Isn't Law and Order the show which ran that dumb gamer episode? I don't really. Honestly, I watch clips on YouTube and I never get the full story.
Yeah, but yet yes, there was an episode of Law and Order that was based on Gamergate, or more accurately, was based on the strawman, fear-mongered version of Gamergate that the establishment thought was Gamergate. Um, I don't remember if it was Criminal Intent or if it was SVU though. I think it might have been Criminal Intent, but it may have also been SVU. So that is a good question. I don't know the answer to, but I know one of the Law and Orders did an episode based on Gamergate, and it was a complete and utter fear-mongering paranoid strawman of Gamergate. Moving on though.
Alright. Da, 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 da. People keep pushing for her to get cut from Aquaman 2 and posted pictures of Johnny Depp wearing a crop top 30 years ago. That last part doesn't really matter here.
The implication that she's going for is people are only on Johnny Depp's side because he's pretty, and therefore they don't want to believe that he's a bad person. But the problem is, if that's a factor that's admissible to the discussion, can we talk about how people don't like seeing the model pretty rich white woman as the perpetrator in any given circumstance? And they prefer to see men as the perpetrators in every conceivable circumstance where possible. Also, given that Johnny Depp lost his access to the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, the Fantastic Beasts franchise, and basically every other major role he had at the time, on nothing but an accusation, mind you, on just the insinuation that he was the abuser, I think it's only fair that Amber Heard also loses her access to Aquaman, especially when you consider that Johnny Depp lost his career over nothing but an accusation, and Amber Heard hasn't suffered any consequences of her actions or her potential actions until after the trial. So even if we're supposed to believe that she was equally abused in the situation with her and Johnny Depp, even if we're supposed to believe that, the burden of proof is still different on her side than on his side. On his side, the accusation was enough for the entirety of Hollywood to go, nope, I'm not touching that guy with a 10-foot pole. The other person that's involved in the situation, oh, I'm sure she was the victim. I'm sure she did nothing wrong. Therefore, she gets to keep her career, but he loses everything he ever built on nothing but an accusation. Meanwhile, she goes through the entire rigmarole of being found guilty in a defamation suit, and they're only now coming to the conclusion that they might, not will, but might be penalized in her career. Now, granted, I would have preferred a standard where neither of these things happened, where neither of these people got their careers crippled by nothing but a moralistic accusation. But if Hollywood wants to take a stand on which of these two is guilty, then Johnny Depp should regain most of his career because he was shown to be, if not entirely innocent, at least not the primary abuser. And Amber Heard was shown to definitely be, at least demonstrably, the primary abuser. So if Hollywood wants to virtue signal and distance themselves from people who have done criminal wrongdoing, then Amber Heard should probably lose something as well, not just Johnny Depp losing something, especially because in his case it was just an accusation, and in her case it's now post trial and she was found guilty on all charges. So yeah, moving on.
Da, 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 da. You can't do anything online without seeing him smiling, seeing unwarranted hate for her. It feels inescapable, and I feel that people hate imperfect women more, and they're able to state clearly.
Okay, you've already presupposed that the hate is unwarranted. And this is the problem. You can't see a situation where she could be in the wrong and enough in the wrong to warrant the negative backlash. And you also can't see a situation where he is innocent enough to not warrant any backlash, or at least a less degree of backlash than he's getting, even though the legal system has gone above and beyond to demonstrate that she is at the very least the primary abuser and that he is at least not the primary instigator in the situation. And that's me being even being charitable to your interpretation as well. Because if I had my druthers, if I had my druthers, we would be saying that Johnny Depp was entirely innocent because that seems to be where the evidence is pointing, and we would say that Amber Heard was the abuser. But since I'm doing my best to be intellectually charitable to you here, it is possible because most examples of domestic violence are in some sense mutually combative. It is possible that it was in some way mutually combative with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. However, the evidence suggests that it was fiercely disproportional on the side of Amber Heard abusing Johnny Depp and Johnny Depp trying his damnedest to avoid conflict with her whenever possible. So, no, if it is in fact the case that she is even the primary abuser, the hate is not disproportional. And it's not because she is a woman. It's because she is an abuser and has been demonstrated to be an abuser in fucking court for the whole world to see. Also, if we are supposed to allow her womanhood as admissible to the discussion, it's very possible indeed that the reason why she's getting, in your opinion, disproportionate hate is actually because women have the privilege of being seen as pure and innocent in general. So whenever a woman steps outside of the morally pure and innocent box that most women are in by default, they're treated harsher than men because men are usually seen as uh, as malign or malicious, even without any evidence of that. I.e., men are always seen as baser and more animalistic. So when they do base animalistic things, that's less jarring um and more acceptable because we have an instinctive confirmation bias for the man is the bad one and the woman is the morally pure one. But because women are always seen as the morally pure parties in any given circumstance, barring extreme examples, when a woman steps out of the morally pure box, she gets hit with the hammer a little bit harder because that does not fit with our instinctive understanding of how women behave. Because women are seen as more morally pure, they pay more consequences when they do morally impure things. Whereas when men are, because when, uh, because men are inherently seen as more often more morally impure, when they do more uh, morally impure things, that's instinctive business as usual. That's, you know, we always assumed men are bad, and this man happened to be bad, therefore, everything is functioning as normal. But when we see women, we see morally pure, neotness, innocent. And so when a woman goes out of her way to be not that, when she goes full tilt Elizabeth Bathory on some poor sod, um, our primitive hindbrains go, "Look, a woman does bad thing? How could that possibly be?" And then when it's shown bang to rights, we go, she forewent her woman card, therefore we need to viciously take it away from her so that no woman ever does bad thing again. Derp. Yeah. It's it's a bias in instinct, yes, but it's actually a bias from the fact that women are always seen as more morally pure and men are always seen as more animalistic. But you don't want to talk about that. You want to talk about the patriarchal oppression hypothesis that you have despite there being no meaningful evidence, even on an evolutionary scale, for it. Moving on.
Yeah. Okay. I don't remember what the trial was really about, but you couldn't escape a simple gory detail. Not on popular Twitch streams orchestrated by cackling gaming personalities or on TikTok, where Depp worshippers turned Heard's testimony into millions of likes, or Instagram or YouTube. It's everywhere, but contrary to what our information overload would have you believe, this trial wasn't about who people on Twitter find more personable, or who has been in more nostalgic childhood films, or who looked hotter in the 90s. It was a defamation trial about three vague sentences in a 2018 opted, uh,
Ed.
whatever, where Heard references her personal experience with sexual violence and abuse. Okay, go.
Yes, okay. Now, no one said it was about who likes who better on Twitter or who was hotter in the 90s. The thing you are missing entirely here is that the plebs, the peasants, the unwashed masses are not the ignorant straw man that you have of them in your head. They're not ignorant. They are reacting to justice being done in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case. The problem you have is that your conception of what constitutes justice is different from what most people's conception of what constitutes justice is. You filter everything through the feminist moral framework and the feminist ideology, which states that women are historically oppressed and that there is a non-falsifiable conspiracy called the patriarchy out there somewhere where women are always put down or femininity is always put down and masculinity is always buoyed up. The problem is the patriarchy has not and never will and never has, to anyone's meaningful satisfaction, existed throughout history. And women have never been oppressed just for being women. Anytime when women have been oppressed throughout history, it's because all people, all humans, are being oppressed by that system, and because women are also a subcategory of human, they get some of the negative treatment. And the other issue is that you have a blind spot where nothing bad has ever happened to men in all of human history, even though it very obviously has. So the long and the short of it is most people's definition of justice does not come with that kind of abstract moralistic baggage. They see a situation where two parties are alleged to have engaged in domestic violence. One party, Johnny Depp, was robbed of his entire career over nothing but an allegation of domestic violence. And one party, namely Amber Heard, was untouched by this allegation entirely. Until such time as a trial was presented for all the world to see and the truth was outed, namely that she was the primary abuser. And that is why people like Johnny Depp more than they like Amber. Not because of sentimentality, not because of nostalgia, not because, oh, he's just more likable, herder. It's because her personality speaks for itself, his personality speaks for itself, and the evidence speaks in favor of Johnny Depp, at least on a louder scale than it speaks on behalf of Amber Heard. And being as she, number one, defamed him, and number two, abused him, people are willing to treat her accordingly. You just don't like that. Moving on.
Yeah, alright. Alright. She does not mention Johnny Depp in the op-ed, but he sued her for $50 million in damages. For this trial, Depp tried suing for libel after British tabloid The Sun called him a wife beater, a phrase a UK judge found to be accurate after deeming 12 counts of alleged assault proven.
Okay. You just disproved your entire argument in the same sentence as you are attempting to defend it. Okay. Here's the thing about well, she never mentioned him. She never mentioned him. Her Okay, that whole rigmarole does not stand up to scrutiny because if she was referring to someone else, if she was referring to someone who was not Johnny Depp, and therefore it wasn't defamatory to him because it was referring to someone else, all she would have had to have done is say so. I.e., when The Sun, based on nothing but her op-ed, assumed by fiat that it must be referring to Johnny Depp and that he thereby implication must be a wife beater. She should have called up The Sun and gone, may I speak to the editor of The Sun, please? And then, obviously the conversation continues. And then she says to the operator of The Sun, you need to print a retraction because the op-ed that I penned was not referring to Johnny Depp. That is all she would have had to have done, and that is an entirely reasonable course of action if she was referring to someone else. However, instead of doing that very obvious thing, where The Sun erroneously took her op-ed to mean that Johnny Depp was an abuser, and then she could have defended him and said, I wasn't referring to Johnny, you need to back the fuck off of this or I will sue you. If she had done that, this entire rigmarole could have been avoided. But instead, she allowed the allegation that Johnny Depp was a wife beater to stand. And then when he sued The Sun for being defamatory, not her, mind you, he never said anything about the op-ed itself. He just said things in relation to what The Sun said about him being a wife beater. When The Sun sued, when Johnny Depp sued The Sun for libel, she came in as a witness for their defense, not his, therefore implying that her op-ed was linked to Johnny Depp, and she has acted in every meaningful instance as though her op-ed was unambiguously targeted at Johnny Depp. So it doesn't matter if she named him directly or not, because number one, she was dating him for several years and married to him for several years. So unless she cheated on him like a motherfucker, who else is a reasonable person going to assume it was related to? And moreover, if a reasonable person came to that conclusion in error, all she would have had to have said is, I wasn't talking about Johnny, you're getting your facts mixed up. But she did not. She did not do that, and in fact did the exact opposite, where every instance where the op-ed was linked to Johnny, she did not dispute it, and in fact agreed with it and doubled down on it. So a reasonable reader who is informed on the relationship between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is going to assume by default that she's referring to Johnny Depp. And every instance where Johnny Depp was accused thereafter, she did not dispute. She doubled down on and in fact defended in several instances. So if you are going to tell me that it doesn't count as defamation because there's no possible way any person would link it to him, you're going to have to explain to me why The Sun ran with that headline and why when he libeled the shit out of them, i.e. when he sued them for libel, she didn't come to his defense, she came to theirs. That entirely makes she didn't directly name him in the suit defense inadmissible. And that's not even counting the case in the courtroom where she actually admitted, yes, the op-ed was about Johnny Depp. That too would have been another nail in the coffin, but that nail in the coffin isn't even necessary because the standard of reasonable human behavior is if you write an article about someone and someone else is erroneously tied to it, you point out that you weren't referring to that person and then you go your separate ways. If she had said, I wasn't talking about Johnny, I was talking about someone else, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. She didn't do that. She doubled down on it. So no reasonable standard by implication or by her own actions could be demonstrated to say she wasn't talking about Johnny Depp. She admitted on several occasions to be referring to Johnny Depp, and therefore all of Hollywood reacted as though she was talking about Johnny Depp, and the Sun reacted as though she was talking about Johnny Depp, and she never clarified anything. So you can take your legal ambiguity and plausible deniability and shove it because she did. Moving on.
Right. Okay. That's surprising that the judge ruled this way. You've probably seen Heard's face purple with healing bruises, or Depp's bleeding middle finger, which he gives conflicting accounts on how he's severed. Amber Heard threw a bottle. It got smashed in a closing door. Though he agrees that he used its dripping wound to write her threatening red messages.
Okay, but that's not violence at all. That it might not be exactly kosher, but it's not violence.
It's fucking
Saying
weird.
I hope you get raped is not tantamount to rape. Saying you can burn in hell is not tantamount to setting someone on fire. And moreover, one of those accounts that you gave for, oh, I just slammed it in the door, sounds like he's trying to cover for her ass. And if he's willing to cover for her ass, then that further implies that he's not an abuser, because if he really wanted to have her over a barrel, he would have just come out with the she threw a bottle story. But he only did that when it became very obvious that she wasn't ever going to back down from her allegations, and that his entire career was being nuked from orbit because, as previously talked about in this stream, we have a tendency to believe victims far more than we probably realistically should. And we find it far easier to believe that women are victims than ever believe that men are victims, which usually, unfortunately, leads to men being victimized and nobody ever saying anything, much less the men themselves, because the male gender role is to deal with shit. And therefore, if you don't deal with shit, you're weak and shit and not a real man, quote unquote. That's why this whole patriarchy hypothesis of yours is allowed to exist in the first place, is because we collectively decided as an empire that women are more often victims than men because men never talk about it. We never ever draw attention to the fact that men aren't supposed to talk about it, and that's why they choose not to. I.e., men suffer in silence with things and women don't, therefore women get more attention than men, and therefore we assume that men can possibly do nothing good and that women can do no wrong because they're victims after all, and so on. Moving on.
Alright, okay, so trying to tell us something here. He's saying, I hope X happens, even a threat. Maybe if he says one day someone is going to, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if they say one day someone is going to, that is one thing, but even that I would argue is probably not criminal in any way, unless they literally give a date or a time, like on this date at this time, this is going to happen, and then it actually happens.
Yeah, the more detailed it is, then that's when you kind of start to worry, right?
Yeah, the more direct it is, or the more it actually does correlate with actual effects on reality, is when you because even then, it's not the words "this is going to happen" that's the issue. It's the following effects that are the issue. I.e., threatening "I'm going to murder you" is not an issue, but if you actually go off and murder someone after saying that, then it becomes an issue.
Oh, yeah, agreed, but at least it could be construed as that.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably still be a plausibly deniable statement, but I could see, and again, even then, it would depend on um what other evidence was involved, because even that by itself is not enough to constitute anything.
Yeah, like, and then you take. No, it hasn't been 4 hours yet. Yeah,
Yeah, telling someone to kill themselves is not murder. Now, if you tell someone to kill themselves and then they actually do it, that's a different thing. But if
as much. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you guys off because I do find this very interesting, but I didn't want to get through this because, to be honest, I kind of want to get to like the trailers that we
yeah,
have.
there are good stories in them that are healed somewhere. So yeah, let's move through.
Yeah, plus I'm just sick of talking about this shit.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. Right. He sent viral text messages about her that his attorney said were inspired by literary giants like Hunter S. Thompson, including a text to actor Paul Bettany that said, "I will fuck her burnt corpse afterward to make sure she is dead."
Okay, let's be real here. If we put in if we put into legal admissibility, um, if we put into legal admissibility everything that two friends have texted to each other in human history, or at least since the history of texting became a thing, we would all be in jail because people say different things in private to close personal friends than they do in public. And also, given that nothing of the sort happened to Amber Heard, we can at least say that it was something he said in private and then did not proceed to act upon. It's something said in anger that was not acted upon. Unlike things that we know Amber Heard is said to have done and said that she did, i.e., "I wasn't punching you, I was merely hitting you, and I'm likely to hit you again because I get so fucking mad sometimes." Those are very different statements. And if all you have in comparison to Bang to Right's confessions that Amber Heard said, knowing that she was being recorded on tape, um, then again, we can at least conclude from this that Amber Heard was the primary abuser. And while mutual abuse is also bad, we at least need to bestow more blame onto the primary abuser than the secondary one. Moving on. Whenever he gets back.
No, I'm back. I just went real quick to throw away something. Uh,
Okay.
okay. Oh, I missed a part of the last sentence. Well,
Okay.
it's just 2 words at the end of it, which is how literary.
Um. Again, he was bantering with his friends in private, and that banter amounted to sweet fuck all that we can demonstrate. Or are we literally so gynocentric as a society that he said naughty things in the privacy of his own text messages to a friend of his is equivalent to she admitted to hitting him and wanting to hit him again on tape? Is that is that how biased this is? Can can he not even so much as say something in anger, and she can literally hit him and admit that she's likely to hit him again on tape, and then further admit to doing it again? Because that might be more indicative of a men's rights issue than you want it to be indicative of bias against Amber Heard. Because if if she had said to, I don't know, her sister, if she had texted to her sister, I hate Johnny's guts so much and I'm going to repeatedly hit him. I am and there wasn't the recording. I imagine people would be willing to excuse her behavior because, oh, battered wife syndrome, oh, she was angry, oh, it was said in the heat of the moment. And that's fine. But if we're going to allow for he was annoyed with, or if we're going to allow the she was annoyed at him, she said something in the heat of the moment that she didn't mean defense for her when she does things like that, then why can't he quietly say something to Paul Bettany in the privacy of his own text messages that implies that he's comedically over the top annoyed at her? Moving on.
Okay. uh, Bird lived through Depp's proven abuse, but her name and the abuse victims she represents imperfect because they were crying because domestic
Oh,
abuse is emotionally naughty, and Heard says she still loves him, are thrown away.
okay.
Our stories are scrutinized, denied. Why? Is it about movies again?
Damn it. Okay. You just said that Depp has some sort of proven abuse. To what to what standard and what case of abuse are you referring? Because the defense of Mr. Depp brought basically every major relationship he's had back up in court and called several of his exes to the witness stand, and they said that he did no such thing to them. And her alleged evidence of abuse either implies mutual combat or implies that she was the primary abuser. There have been no meaningfully proven examples of Johnny Depp abusing anyone, let alone Amber Heard. But there are bang to rights confessions from Amber Heard, both on the witness stand and on tape, where she knew she was being recorded, and yet she's not the abuser. And yet she's somehow the platonic ideal of womankind being abused. Also, generally speaking, tears from victims doesn't make someone a worse victim. Vic- Tears are something that we look for in actual victims because it's a sign of trauma. The thing that the thing that really bit Amber Heard in the ass is her crying was very evidently performative and insincere, and she couldn't actually cry real tears. And given that she's a professional actor, that sort of implies that she's acting. And I've got to go address the cat because she won't stop meowing unless I address her. So I will be right back. Yes, cat. Shush. Shush, cat. You're okay. You're okay. You know. There you go. Okay, I'm back. And Brainstormer is not.
No, sorry, I muted myself real quick. I'm
Uh,
I'm still here.
okay.
You were going on about something.
Well, I had to address the cat because the cat wouldn't stop meowing.
Right. So moving on, or
Yes, moving on. Go ahead.
okay, I wasn't sure. All right. It just can't be about movies. It can't just be about movies. To me, this reaction to Hurt's imperfections is a deluge. Deluge.
Okay. Once again,
I don't.
it was never about.
I,
Go ahead.
I wasn't finished. I just can't. I don't know what that word means.
Deluge.
Deluge of
It
hate
me
that
it
has
me
always.
it means a flood.
Okay, well, let me start over again because I didn't finish the sentence.
Mhm.
It can't just be about movies. To me, this reaction to Hurt's imperfections is a deluge of hate that has always existed. Sometimes it gets buried. In the beginning of the hashtag MeToo movement, believing women was more socially acceptable because women band together. Never mind the fact that everyone already knew Harvey Weinstein was a piece of shit. Okay,
Okay. One, the issue is not Amber Heard's imperfections. What you are calling her imperfections are more charitably referred to as her crimes, i.e., this isn't a matter of she didn't make the right facial expression or she didn't do this or she didn't do that. It's a matter of she banged to rights, abused someone and admitted that she did it and admitted that she was likely to do it again on tape. Meanwhile, Johnny Depp appears to have avoided confrontation as much as feasibly possible. Also, this is not a deluge of hate. This is what's known in philosophical circles as a proportional response. That proportional response just happens to be coming from a lot of people because a lot of people are familiar with this case. When every single person on Earth has a proportional response to something, that doesn't mean that the response is not proportional. It just means that a large degree of exposure has taken place. Also, there has never been an epoch in human fucking history where believing women is not admissible. Because here's the thing, and this is the funny thing about like witch trials, for example. Every single one of the accusers in the Salem witch trials were young teenage girls. And the idea that your philosophy or your ideology is the first to normalize the believing of women is farcical. Women's moral purity and women's indignation have been the two greatest movers of the moral paradigm in human history. The old adage, if mama's not happy, ain't nobody happy. That's why. The adage of yes, dear, when they tell you to, sleep out on the couch, that's why. The adage of if it bleeds, it leads. If there are tears, it's clear. That whole thing is because women's victimhood is one of the most weaponized forces of human social cohesion in history. You are not the inventors of the notion of believing women. However, just like in the example I just gave with the Salem witch trials, when women are believed disproportionately, or when the believing of women conflicts with the burden of proof, You wind up in moralistic hysteria of the Helen Lovejoy kind, of the finger pointing witch smeller kind, of the lynch this person because I declare that he raped me even if we had sex consensually or if we have never had sex at all kind. Women's accusation, especially accusations of them being victimized, have always been incredibly powerful. When women's tears start flowing, men's heads roll as a result. And that's always been the case. And Me Too didn't do jack shit to normalize that other than to weaponize it and to make it disproportional because it inverted the burden of proof. It made an accusation equivalent socially to a confirmation. Moving on.
Uh, 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 d- 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 uh, but then there are darker times in pop culture, like when the world laughed as a broken Britney Spears lashed out at swarming paparazzi with an umbrella, or when Gamergate sneered and drew an ugly line in the sand. Women, especially complex women, aren't welcome here.
Okay.
Okay, the Britney Spears one, I will grant you, mainly because I don't like the paparazzi.
Okay, yeah. But the thing with Britney Spears is they weren't laughing at her. They were laughing at how she was reacting because her reaction was inherently absurd and inherently humorous. But even then, even as they laughed at the way her head was shaved, they never invalidated her as a person as a result of it. Even South Park, who takes the piss out of everyone, made a sympathetic addendum to their Britney Spears mockery episode. They made her sympathetic and the victim at the end. So, yeah, no, in Britney Spears' case, it was because the way she reacted was humorous and absurd. It had nothing to do with invalidating her as a person. And Gamergate was the result of some aristocratic feminist women going, "We are in charge of this vehicle now," and a bunch of gamers going, "We won't give up without a fight." Again, women's victimhood is not some kind of new moral revelation. Women's victimhood is one of the oldest forces in human history, and it's often been used by immoral women to gain power over people they shouldn't have power over. Because we can't distinguish between bad women and good women because they're women. And our default assumption is that the woman must be in the right and anyone else must be in the wrong. So much so that we'll even take away the womanhood of women who dissent from the sisterhood, quote unquote, and call them internalized misogyny or witches or whatever morally invalidating word we can come up with at the time. Moving on.
Sorry. Complex women can't be perfect. People, including other women, want physical beauty. The virginal porcelain face of Jane Eyre, not the wild-haired Bertha Mason. A man walks out in an attic and somehow she's the crazy one. The fuck?
False equivalency if I ever heard one, but also, how do you feel about complex men? How do you feel about men who aren't the perfect Adonis beauty standard? The men who are slovenly, like Rick Moranis characters always are, or specifically Lewis from Ghostbusters, or how about particularly feminine or weak men like Steve Urkel or Carlton Banks like again, if this is the game we're playing, I can hit you right back with it because men who don't live up to the real man standard don't get shit either, and often men who do live up to the real man standard, but live up to it disproportionately or too much. Like your Blutos, your Gastons, your Biff Tannins, etc. They get vilified too. So what you're failing to understand here is that men and women both have a case where their gender conformity isn't the issue. Their actions and the consequences of those actions are the issue. But generally speaking, we're more lenient to women who are evil because even women who are evil can often be seen as attractive or redeemable or the victim of society or circumstance. Whereas to make a pop culture example, I would go so far as to say that there are many women who identify very very strongly with characters like Carrie or even Annie Wilkes from Misery or the various versions of the Wicked Witch of the West that have been sympathetic over the years, like Alphaba from Wicked or Zelena from Once Upon a Time, or Maleficent in the Angelina Jolie version, or even the Glenn Close Cruella can be sympathetic in some way. But let's again click it and drag it to a male example and see what happens. Compare the reaction to someone like Carrie and the reaction to someone like the main villain kid in Chronicle. Both inextricably given mental powers, both take it out on their bullies, both, go batshit doolally at the end. But which of these is still to this day seen as a sympathetic caricature, and which of these is seen as an example of toxicity? Or how about we take the example of Nancy from The Craft versus Todd Phillips' Joker or Travis Bickle. One of these seems much more sympathetic than the other, doesn't it? That's because even when women do bad things, we find it more likely that they're doing bad things for good reasons. But when men do bad things, it must be because they're inherently bad. Moving on.
Or in video games, the pink Princess Peaches, the curvy Laura Crofts, but they also demand emotional perfection, lightness, level-headedness, no conflicting facial expressions like Amber Heard had, sobbing one second and sober the next. Yeah, that doesn't really strike. See, that there doesn't strike me as
conflicted.
Sane.
That's not conflicted. That's disingenuous. They've never.
Right. I was.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, a part of me wanted to be sociopathic, but I don't think it's that extreme.
It's just disingenuous. No need to inflate it one way or the other when it's perfectly encapsulated by disingenuous.
Honestly, disingenuous works fine. It's
or unstable, maybe, if we want to push it a little bit further. But okay, people have never had a problem with women who are both good and also complicated or conflicted. Sarah Connor, for example, breaks down crying as she's mowing down Terminators. Nobody cared. Even a very classical feminine example like Judy Garland from Wizard of Oz, she cries all the time, or she has emotional issues all the time. Nobody cares. Elaine Bennis from Seinfeld literally beats the shit out of some people on screen. It's only ever treated as a joke. Yeah, but no, it's not. Amber Heard's ability to flip-flop between sobbing and sneering is not a sign of a hatred for complex characters, it's a sign of either she's lying or she's so delusional that she believes her own bullshit and she actually is that psychologically unstable. And given that she's been diagnosed with either borderline personality disorder or histrionic personality disorder, I find the second one to be the more charitable interpretation. But either way, and of course there's the issue of, it both is a both simultaneously is a possibility. She could have started out lying, but actually come to believe her own lies at some point. Um, but either way, that's not a sign of conflicted characters. Not even how conflicted characters in any description act. For another example, Luke Skywalker rather famously has an emotional breakdown in Return of the Jedi, and starts the fuck on Vader, the hero, because of the context and how he actually reacted to realizing he was having that emotional breakdown. That's the difference. That's what makes a hero or a villain. Not that they have emotional breakdowns, not that they have flaws, but how they get there, i.e., what causes the emotional breakdown, and how do they react to said emotional breakdown. Amber Heard's reaction to being called on her bullshit was to emotionally flip flop depending on what the situation needed. That's not complex. That's just disingenuous. Moving on.
I might. Okay, my internet's kind of weirding out right now, so I might have to fix that. So I might disappear, like on stream and stuff, for a brief moment.
Okay, I will entertain the chat while you're gone then.
Okay. I'll be right back, folks.
Yep. Technical difficulties. I haven't seen any new chats since Dragon Turtles, especially since her and her team are now going after everyone not siding with her in this or still. I apologize for that, but this is the situation. In the immortal words of Bill Burr, we're in this room now. You're you're stuck in a digital room with me until Brainstormer comes back. And the things I will do to you in the meantime. Lol. um, Physically incapable of dancing, and also no and fuck you. Just both actually physically incapable of dancing, but also on general principle, fuck you for that. Yes, that is exactly my reaction. Yes. Yeah. Fair enough. It amuses me that they are tying this back to Gamergate because it just goes to show how they still haven't gotten over Gamergate and they still don't know anything about Gamergate other than their own straw man version of it. And also that, Amber Heard must be the platonic ideal of all women, otherwise we're morally wrong. It can never be, because even if you were an extreme feminist, even if you believed all this patriarchy shit, blah 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 blah, even if all that was true, the correct answer to someone like Amber Heard would have been, she is an example of internalized misogyny. She is an example of the patriarchy brainwashing women. That probably would have been the internally consistent feminist example demonstrating Amber Heard. But instead of that, what we see is them trying to lionize Amber Heard and trying to defend her moral purity instead of coming to the objectively discernible fact that she is in the moral wrong. Which just goes to show you what feminists consider moral correctness to be and what feminists consider impurity or immorality to be, because they will say that kind of shit about someone like Alison Tiemann or Karen Strawn. They will say they have internalized misogyny, they're a bad example of what it is to be women, they're disassociated from the sisterhood. But with someone like Amber Heard or Valerie Solanas, no, they bring them into the bosom of the feminine oversoul, unquote.
I've returned.
Huzzah.
I think I got it fixed. I just unplugged my router and plugged it back in, so I think we're good for now. And I was also setting, I was setting everything back up too. So
yeah, this concludes tonight's portion of technical difficulties.
Yeah. Okay. So what did I miss? Because I'm just now seeing a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Like Giant Turtle saying now dance monkey.
No. That was the answer. The answer was fuck you and no.
Piece of shit. God damn it, I hate these fucking sites, man.
Yeah, the internet hates us, but we're still not going anywhere.
Right. Okay. So just start off where we left off, or should I read some before, just so we still have context?
No, just start where we left off.
Okay.
I think everyone should be able to follow.
Gotcha. Okay. People don't want to see anything that indicates that this woman, pretty as she is really just a human. She makes mistakes. Sometimes she hits back, or she misspeaks.
Okay, so I'm going to take this on board as though it's admissible, and flip it and see what you think. People don't want to see this man, Johnny Depp, as vulnerable or fragile or the victim, because that wouldn't conform to gendered assumptions like women's victimhood or men's eternal agency. See, now that actually does sound to me like a shrewd and discernible summation of the situation. The other, however, skews the fact that she is the perpetrator in this situation, that her alleged vulnerabilities include being an abuser, and the implication of the phrase hitting back implies that Johnny Depp hit her, which cannot be demonstrated to be the case. It implies that he is the instigator and that she is reacting to him, whereas all of the evidence and even the testimony suggest that he was more often than not reacting to her and that she was the one instigating. See, but this is the thing. Even in your summary of the case, where you're trying to be neutral and trying to be objective, you can't get it out of your head that he must be the abuser and that she must be the abused, because you have a conception of what all womankind is. And the fact that Amber Heard is outside of the parameters of all womankind is so jarring to you that you can't accept it. You can't bring yourself to internalize the idea that she is not the victim and that he is not the perpetrator because you have a worldview issue. Well, I'm sorry, but just like with every other moralistic ideologue I've ever had to deal with, your worldview is not synonymous with the entire actual world. What you think about events and what actually happens are not the same thing. You are allowed to form opinions based on data, and you are allowed to frame data in whichever way you want. But if it happens that the data runs contrary to your worldview and that the internally consistent logic runs contrary to your worldview, then I'm sorry for your loss, but it is nevertheless the case. Just because Christians would prefer that all polytheistic deities are demons, that doesn't make it so. And just because or Nephilim, um, and just because you would prefer a situation in which no woman has ever done anything wrong and no man has ever been a victim of what a woman does to him, doesn't make it so. What you think about the world is not the world, and what the world is not what you think about the world. They are two separate categories. You are free to have them, but they are separate categories. Your issue is that you can't see the difference between what you assume must be the case and what actually is the case. Moving on.
Right. When a woman misspeaks because the situation she described was so painful she wanted to forget it, because litigious,
Litigious, it means prone to legal action.
because a litigious man with as much power and money as death has tried smacking the memory out of her. I want to say the world will come to her aid.
Okay, you just slandered Johnny Depp again. He should be suing you for defamation. You assumed by fiat that he is guilty and that he hit her. And the entire premise of the trial was that he never hit her and that she was the primary instigator. And also, if we're allowed to see, the person was under stress and said the wrong thing as a meaningful counter argument to these allegations, why is it Johnny Depp can't say that about those texts he sent to Paul Bettany in the privacy of his own cell phone? Why are you willing to conjure up any excuse for Amber Heard but demonize Johnny Depp at every conceivable turn and exorcise any sympathy or empathy for Johnny Depp as either invalid or inapplicable? If she can say the wrong thing because she was abused, then why is it inconceivable to you that he can occasionally say the wrong thing in the privacy of his own goddamn cell phone to one of his friends because he was also abused or angry? If she can do all the things that she's done because she was angry or she was traumatized, then why do none of Johnny Depp's occasional faux pas also get covered by the aegis of he was upset because he was traumatized? And the answer, if we're being honest with ourselves, is that you think men can handle anything you throw at them, and you think women can't handle anything that anyone throws at them. I.e., she must be the victim and he must be the perpetrator in some way, no matter how much the evidence and the logic and the offered testimonies conflict with that. You can't see him as being a victim of her, and you can't see her as being an instigator of violence toward him, no matter how much it is very obviously the case. This is a your bias problem. It is not the world problem. You think you are the moral arbiter of the world instead of internalizing what the world is demonstrating to you. This is why I get so hung up, like I did last week with the Homelander article, about people failing to understand each other's worldviews. Because the first step in understanding that other people have different worldviews than you is to understand that what your that what your opinion of the world is, i.e., what your worldview is not synonymous with the world itself. You can claim to be deriving your worldview from the world as much as you like, but you still have to acknowledge that there's some line of demarcation between the things you think about the world and the way the world actually is. And if you can't do that, then you will inexorably, as Sherlock Holmes put it, alter facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. And that will always lead you to falsehoods, delusions, false equivalencies, and moral demarcations where there are none. Moving on.
Oh, I assumed you would have added failure in there.
Oh yeah. Every aspect of this article is a paranoid, conspiratorial, delusional, fucking hypocritical failure, but that's neither here nor there. Moving on.
Okay. We're supposedly post-Gamergate, post-Me Too. I want to believe that we're all now equipped with the basic understanding that abuse is multifaceted, sometimes subtle, always insidious and confusing.
If that is what you believe, then why in all the fucks do you not extend that same level of intellectual honesty and charity to Johnny Depp? If you truly believe in your heart of hearts that abuse is multifaceted, why can you not accept any of the evidence that implies that Amber Heard had a large part to play in this situation and that Johnny Depp was largely avoiding confrontation where possible and in many cases the victim? I'm willing to allow that it was in some way mutual. I'm willing to give you that. What I am not willing to do is ignore the fact that the evidence and the logic and the testimony implies that she was the primary abuser and that he was primarily avoidant of engaging with her. I.e., when she became abusive, he did everything he could to avoid her. I'm willing to allow that sometimes was impossible and that he had to retaliate in some way. But I am not willing to allow that A, that there's an equivalency between what she did and what he did, or B, that he is actually somehow the Machiavellian mastermind behind this whole thing and that she is just the poor put upon victim. Because no amount of logic or evidence has been demonstrated to imply that. In fact, if we're just going by the logic and the evidence, Johnny Depp is as close to a saint as Hollywood can produce, and Amber Heard is like 2 rungs down from Typhoid Mary, Annie Wilkes, or Elizabeth fucking Bathory. Moving on.
But Heard continues to be abused in the court of public opinion, and as a result, other real, imperfect victims know for certain that we aren't supported. Not until we get our story straight or our tears in line.
Like, you currently aren't supporting Johnny Depp because he didn't behave enough like a woman, or your conception of what victims should act like, which is usually feminine, or because he's a man and men are never, ever, ever victims. See, again, if you're willing to give this kind of leeway to Amber Heard that she was an imperfect victim, why can you not internalize the notion that Johnny Depp was also an imperfect victim? If you want to be charitable to both sides, that's fine. Complex systems are complex, and I agree with you that abuse generally is complex, and that most often domestic violence is in some way mutual. I'm willing to give you that, but I'm not willing to give you that she was the primary victim or that he was the primary abuser, because the logic doesn't imply that, the personalities in question don't imply that, the testimony of both parties in question don't imply that, and none of the evidence implies that. You can say that it's mutual because most domestic violence cases are in some way mutual, but you can't say that she was always the victim and that he was always the abuser, because that's counter to the logic, the evidence, and the testimony, and the personalities involved. Because Amber Heard has actually been has actually been shown to be abusive to her previous partners as well. There was a rather famous incident back when she was dating a woman where the police were called and that she was considered to be the abuser. Whereas every past relationship that they called to the stand in the trial of Johnny Depp's implied that Amber Heard's notion of who Johnny Depp is as a person was not just false, but directly contrary to what every other woman he's ever been in a serious relationship with has thought, up to and including the one back in the 90s who was falsely who was falsely implied to have been pushed down the stairs, which she herself contravened. Moving on.
Right. That's why I watch idyllic shows like SVU. It's not real. Probably never will be, but I can't stop myself from hoping.
Okay, this is your problem, dear. You can't separate your idea of woman from your idea of victim, and you can't ever open up your idea of victim to the possibility that a man can be a victim of a woman. If Law and Order SVU was real, which of the two parties do you genuinely think would have a stronger case? Would it be Amber Heard, who admitted that she has anger issues and that her anger issues often lead her to violence on tape and that she was likely to hit him again? Or would it be Johnny Depp, who, again, on tape, is shown to actively avoid confrontation with her, up to and including locking himself in the fucking bathroom, whereupon she will beat down the door, injure herself, and he will still feign sympathy for her injured toes? Because if we're going by the Law and Order SVU standard, the victim here is Johnny Depp. Amber Heard is an abusive bitch and a lying cunt and a fucking borderline and or hysteria, regardless, on the cluster B personality spectrum, and she deserves to be treated like the IRL equivalent of Cruella de Vil, because she almost certainly is as close as reality is able to provide. Fortunately. Yeah, seriously, if we ever get confirmation that she was ever abusive to her pets, I'm gonna just start calling her Cruella de Vil. Because she's already well past Regina George levels of evil. She's not quite to Elizabeth Bathory levels of evil yet, but she's somewhere between Miranda Priestley and Cruella de Vil on the feminine evil scale. Moving on.
Yeah, Amber DeVille, by the way. Amber DeVille, by the way.
No, her name can be changed to Cruella as far as I'm concerned, because it literally contains the word cruel.
Right, okay, so
if she's ever shown to be abusive to animals, I'm not gonna accuse her of something she didn't do yet, but she's past Regina George, she's past Annie Wilkes, she's past Miranda Priestley. The next rung up is Cruella de Vil.
Right, okay, Giant Turtle. This one popped up while we were talking on the article. Is it that they do not understand that other worldviews exist, or that they reject any other and seek to impose their own?
It's a little bit of both. It's that they don't understand that other worldviews can be valid, and therefore when someone presents other worldviews, they reject them. Or they strawman them and use the strawman as a reason to reject them. I.e., when using the Homelander article from last week, when someone says to them that just like the Flag Smashers can be sympathetic in your worldview, Homelander can be sympathetic in mine. They can't see the populism or the sincerity or the straight talking as good things. They have to say, so you're defending January 6th, or you're defending white supremacists, or you're defending this, or you're defending that. Just like, the other side, if shown, here are the Flag Smashers, they can be sympathetic. They would say, so you're a violent anarcho-communist who supports the Chaz? Yeah, it's the same shit. It's my worldview is the only valid one. Therefore, anyone else who operates under any different worldview must either be too stupid to know that they're being immoral, or they're just actively immoral, and there can be no legitimacy to anyone's worldview but mine. That's how that works. Moving on though to the good things, because there are some good things. This show was actually pretty evenly split between the I want to kill myself bad things and the good things.
Yep.
For once.
There's some Dalton. We're covering this because Dalton wants to cover it.
Okay, I resent that slightly because Halloween is your favorite holiday. Don't be acting like you don't want this.
Look, okay. I'm simply saying that because he did send me this. That's what I meant to imply. And I'm fully aware of how big a fan he is of this movie.
And okay, to be fair, I was one of the people who, when they announced Hocus Pocus 2, was like, why the fuck would you make a sequel to that? Like I had no anticipation of this movie at all. I thought for sure it was going to be a useless cash grab. This trailer actually kind of turned me around on it.
Well, let's get into it. But first, I do want to mention, I am not, and it's nothing against the property itself. I just never really got into it. I'm not the biggest fan of Hocus Pocus.
It's not by any means my favorite Halloween movie, but I mean I watch it every year around Halloween because
fuck it, it's been years and years since I've last seen it.
Okay,
like I said, it's not really one of those movies I really think about a lot, It really grabs me.
I guess I'm at an advantage here because every year around Halloween I would always watch the 13 Nights of Halloween on ABC, and
I remember that. Yeah.
Hocus Pocus usually was one of the ones they played on repeat. That and Halloween Town, the Halloween Town movies, except for the fourth one because the fourth one is shit. But that's not here nor there. But the first three Halloween Town movies were also my go-to Halloween movie. And then, of course, Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat is the most Halloween movie ever, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. Okay. But yeah, I haven't seen this because I always like to try and give a fresh reaction to these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hocus Pocus 2 teaser trailer, Disney Plus.
Yep. Because of the theming, I feel like we should do an off-season jack-o'-lanterns.
Jack-o'-lanterns.
Hey, happy birthday. Thanks. So what are you guys doing tonight? Birthday ritual, scary movie marathon, same as every year.
Legend has it.
I got nothing bad to really say, honestly. It's fine so far. Like it has it sets a tone.
Yeah, when I first watched this, I thought I had clicked the wrong trailer because it didn't really feel like a Hocus Pocus sequel. It felt like an actual horror movie.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I actually kind of like them going more straightforward horror movie with this one. And also, to be fair, I don't do birthday rituals because my birthday doesn't fall anywhere near a magically significant holiday or anything. But I can empathize as fuck with this whole thing.
Right.
Anyway, jack-o'-lanterns.
Well,
Unless you had something else.
I will say, okay, this is me being technical, like I always am,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it could be different. Maybe it's a stylized thing, but I kind of wish there was a little more pop in the color.
Yeah, that they were actually going a little bit more akin to like the Hocus Pocus color scheme. But I
Or
think
like,
what they're go ahead.
well, I was gonna say, or like, yeah, kind of like original, where like it was a little more like a little neon pop of color and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Again, I'm like when I think of, because it is like a '90s movie, right? Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, it's a 90s Disney Channel movie.
Yeah, when I think of like '90s '90s like colorful movies, and I'm gonna get an eye roll for this from some people. I know it, but Joel Schumacher's Batman movies. Like, say what you
Boot
want
to
about.
the head.
I know. Say what you want about those movies. I don't deny that they are not great Batman movies, but I liked their visual aesthetic at the very least.
I mean, no, I can't do it. I can't bring myself to give those movies a compliment. Boot to the head. But anyway, jack-o'-lanterns.
Wow, I'm even more objective than him when it comes to that. That's surprising.
Okay, but before we move on, I think what they're doing is they're gonna play it almost like a straightforward horror movie until the Sanderson sisters show up, and then they're gonna bring in the color. I think.
Which I mean, okay, that's what I was also thinking, but I didn't want to bring it up just yet until like we saw. You know?
Yeah, I'm actually of two minds on this because as a just straight sequel to Hocus Pocus, it's not exactly a good thing. But that being said, as much as I have Halloween-based nostalgia for Hocus Pocus, being as I am a practitioner of magic and have been for 16 freaking years, um, it's not a very good portrayal of witchcraft or magic in general. Though it does have its moments, I will give it that. For example, the moment where um Allison, I think, the love interest,
Yeah.
I think it was Allison. But the moment where Allison um counters the sisters by casting a salt circle and they refer to her as a white witch. It does have its moments, and the fact that they admitted in a Disney movie that classical medieval witches are said to sell their soul to the devil, and they referred to a guy dressed as the devil as master. Balls, balls that modern Disney does not have, generally speaking. Um, Multiverse of Madness notwithstanding. But yeah, I will give it that there were moments of accurate, attempted accuracy somewhere in there. But given that in the modern age, you know, much to my chagrin, mostly due to New Agers and fluffy bunnies, more people are more familiar with what witchcraft actually is or what magic actually is in a real life, people actually use it more regularly setting now. The idea that the sequel is taking itself a little bit more seriously because the audience is going to be more informed on what witchcraft actually is. I can work with that. And again, I find the idea of young girl does birthday ritual to be it reminds me a little bit of in Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost when Thorn uses her herbal mixture to heal her vocal cords. Which, by the way, I've used that recipe, and that actually works for anyone that didn't know. That recipe that Thorn gives in Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost actually works. But that's neither here nor there. I do think that might be why they're going a little bit more serious, is because they know the audience is more informed on magic loosely now. So yay, jack-o'-lanterns.
Right. Yeah, go on.
It's on the 16th birthday that a witch gets her powers.
And another year begins anew.
Age decapita bellicum mystica.
Maiden, mother, and crown too.
Age decapita bellicum mystica.
We call on thee with one request.
Age decapita bellicum mystica.
Help our intentions know best.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. There. I just wanted to point out, like, the black cat,
yeah,
which I believe is supposed to be. Who is it again? I always forget.
Binks.
Yeah.
Thackeray Binks, yeah. Which that creates a plot hole because Binks is supposed to have crossed over by now. Like when the sisters were turned to stone and then burst into dust, his soul very, very evidently crossed over, and his sister Emily welcomed him into what presumably was heaven. So that does confuse me slightly. Okay, so this whole thing, because there's a few things I want to say about this bit. One, the reference to the Maiden, Mother, and Crone, I appreciate that. That's very good. However, the notion that witchcraft is somehow in the bloodline, and that the 16th birthday is somehow mystically significant. Number one, no. If you're gonna make any witch year significant, it should be the 13th birthday. But that's neither here nor there. Number two, even in the original Hocus Pocus, the powers of the witches came from the classical medieval understanding of woman sells her soul to the devil. Again, the scene where they see someone dressed as the devil and they go, "Master!" Yeah. And repeated references to "you sold your soul, I've been to hell," etc. So this is actually kind of a step backwards to make witchcraft some kind of bloodline thing or mutant power or some shit. Misses the point entirely. So as much credit as I give it for Maiden, Mother, and Crone, I have to also deduct points for the fuck-tarded bloodline shit. Because the original didn't. The original actually had some balls and went with the "you sold your soul to the devil" thing, which does sort of bring this whole thing into. And that's the other problem with mixing together the medieval understanding of selling one's soul to the devil and also the bloodline thing, because does that mean your soul is preemptively bought and you're just waiting to confirm it? Like that's severely disturbing, actually, if we're going with that route. But yeah, I have to deduct points with the same hand that I used to give points, because in the same way as this movie seems to be going a little bit more accurate and sincere with its witchcraft, it also stepped in some bullshit that even the original didn't do. So, meh. But
Right. Okay. So
Jack-o'-lanterns.
before we move on, well, before we do, Johnny told us a few things. I don't know, changing the tone and seriousness level of a franchise from the originals in the mainline spin-off sounds like the sort of things fans normally hate. Granted, okay, so this sequel, well, it's made, I would assume it's placed in modern time. And the original was, I believe,
93.
Okay, it's I'm assuming that's coming later 2022 or 2023. So that's
Yeah.
about 30 or so years removed from the original.
And I'm gonna have to call you on the straw man there, Dragon Turtle, because people don't hate changes just for the sake of hating changes. They hate changes that don't work or that don't improve the franchise. For as an example, Thor Ragnarok is much different from Thor 1 or Thor 2. But because it's an obvious improvement, an obvious change in direction to improve the series, not only does no one care, but most people are relieved because it's actually moving in the proper direction. So it's not changes for change, it's not changes by themselves that people hate. It's changes that either don't add anything or make the franchise worse. This franchise is actually benefited by the more serious approach to magic. Um, as I said, I like the changes of treating it like a more serious horror movie. I like the changes of the reference to Mother, Maiden, and Crone. I like the characters are studious witch types. I don't like the insertion of my bloodlines, because that, as I said, one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. It's a step forward to bring in some actual lore and to play things a little straighter, at least before before the sisters show up. It's less um it's less so to imply some kind of bloodline connection where there was no bloodline connection previously. Especially when being able to have characters who literally sold their soul to the devil, or some red horned creature, probably in the Disney context Chernabog, but that's neither here nor there. Because usually when a devil is needed in Disney lore, it's Chernabog. But being able to actually admit that in the medieval conception, witches sold their soul to the devil was a pretty ballsy move for Disney Channel original movies in 1993. So yeah, it's not changes that's the problem. It's bad changes or changes that don't add anything and make the series worse. Changes that improve things are welcome and even sometimes necessary.
Right.
And I'm assuming he responded.
Yeah, but he also wrote earlier. Imagine if Return of the Jedi had more of a Spaceballs tone to it.
That's not equivalent.
Yeah, because that is a direct sequel made very shortly after, kind of shortly after Empire Strikes Back.
And Spaceballs is a parody. So in fact, what you'd be more justified in going with is, what if a Spaceballs sequel played it more serious like Star Wars? That would be the equivalent of what's going on here. But even then, kudos to Mel Brooks for this, by the way. Parodies back when Mel Brooks was doing them weren't deliberately absurd laugh-a-minute parodies. They had their own internal lore. Like, for example, the lore of the Schwartz in Spaceballs is taken relatively seriously. Yes, there are jokes, but it's not a we're making fun. It allows it okay, good example. It does to Star Wars what the Orville does to Star Trek. I.e., it's different and it's more comedic and it's more human, but it's not absurd or taken for granted or without its own internal rules.
Okay. If Dalton keeps giving and deducting points, we might need to keep a score. Insert Harry Potter house reference.
What now?
That was when you were taking points off for.
Oh, I see. The 10 points for Ravenclaw. Except, yeah,
Okay, hold on.
I'm. It's literally my job to hold things to some degree of mystical accuracy. And yeah, I won't ever apologize for doing that.
Right. Okay. It's not a straw man. People typically either don't care or, if they care about canon, hate changes by default. Yes, objectively, good changes are appreciated nonetheless because of their benefit. That is assuming everyone will like it, and going from a lighthearted, jokey tone to a serious one might turn a lot of people off.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that was it. That was my input. Just kind like I'm on the fence about that.
Okay, there are two things you're not considering. The reason people are devoted to canon is because the canon matters, i.e., the canon is meaningful. If the additions to canon make the canon stronger, then people don't care. And let's be fair here, there really wasn't that much canon to be messed with in Hocus Pocus. 2, they're not making it entirely serious. They're still going to bring in the Sanderson sisters any minute now, and it's still going to be a comedy and so on. What they're doing is adding some serious elements to just, number one, justify the sequel. Number 2, acknowledge that magic is more commonplace in today's day and age than it was in 1993. Like, Wicca was a thing, but it was very rarely, if ever, referenced. Like the craft came. Sorry.
Well, no, I just also want to point this out is that the original Hocus Pocus was also serious. Like it had serious moments in it.
Yeah, there was some genuine heart here and there, and again, they did actually reference, no, witches actually sell their soul to the devil or to some demon character.
In the opening, they killed a child.
Yeah, and the opening also features them literally being hanged.
Yeah, so
and again, it ends with a soul literally crossing over into the afterlife. So they're not above seriousness. But what I was saying was, I think the addition of seriousness has to do with the fact that people are more magically literate now than they were in 1993. For example, I think The Craft was actually 1996. It was either 96 or 99. But point being, when Hocus Pocus came out on Disney Channel, it was still a few years yet before even something like The Craft came onto the scene, which did take magic somewhat seriously and did inspire a lot of people to look into Wicca and the Goth movement. So there's that. Also, like I say, they're not making the seriousness contrary to the original. They're just adding a little bit to it, which honestly is better than just doing a 2022 redux of Hocus Pocus, because that would be the very definition of a sequel that is unnecessary.
Right. Okay. All right. So fair enough. As long as it isn't a heel turn, it is probably okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they're not pulling a "we're smarter than the originals" on us.
Well,
yeah,
again,
they're not Last Jediing it.
Well, this is the teaser trailer, and
Go ahead.
the Last Jedi teaser trailer. The trailers for the Last
It
Jedi
didn't
weren't
reveal
bad.
the bad parts. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe this could be a similar situation. Hope not. Obviously, I'm just pointing that out. You know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, unless the trailer is in some way misrepresentative, I I don't think this is a Last Jedi type situation. Mostly because in 5 seconds the Sanderson sisters are gonna pop up and it's gonna be very comedic. So it in fact, if anything,
Don't tell-
this is yeah, I know, but this is the logical extension of Allison's scene in um the first movie where she is a white witch. So it's going to be someone who's magically literate, in this case these kids, versus the Sanderson sisters, which frankly sounds cool to me. But that's neither here nor there. Moving on. Jack-o'-lanterns.
Jack-o'-lanterns. Somehow, this seems like a kind of shot, like if Tim Burton directed Evil Dead a bit.
A bit, yeah. Which
Like it's not
works,
all
kind of,
to
but
insanity like Sam Raimi is, but it has that kind of flair to it.
yeah, it's. I assume this is coming out for Halloween because why in all the fucks would you do
Well, it did
anything
say
else?
it's Halloween season, so
So yeah, obviously,
yeah.
and
I
and
think
to be fair,
I think it is this.
yeah. To be fair, the same thing happened in the first movie
For
where it was all
July in spring.
yeah, but the first movie did this too, where when he lights the black flame candle, it's played fairly seriously until Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, and Sarah Jessica Parker walk through the door and start being living memes.
Hamming
Which
it up, you mean?
I'm interested to see. Yeah. Um, I'm interested to see why the sisters are back though, because um, yeah, I guess the implication is that these.
It looked like there was black. Well, it looked like there was the black candle. Like I saw the black flame was lit.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that yeah. Yeah, the implication I guess is that they have power. The girls have powers. Um, and yeah, it does look like for her birthday candle they borrowed the black flame candle, which just inherently makes me want to laugh hysterically. So it might just be a case of they channeled enough power back into the black flame candle to relight it, and the book appears to be sitting there as well. So like maybe they're literally maybe they just decided to raid the Sanderson sisters museum, and they borrowed the book and the candle, and so the book is sitting there feeding them power, and the candle is sitting there feeding them power. So their like spark of power is enough to wake the book up and relight the candle. Like that would make them very very stupid, but stupid in the adolescent we're too ambitious to know for our own good kind of way.
And Donald knows what that's like to have bit in the ass about.
I mean, yeah, when I was a teenager, I did some stupid things with magic, but
Oh no, I'm talking
I-
about the most recent thing you did last year.
as far as at this point in time, bargaining with Mab has not bitten me in the ass.
No. The stupid thing you did to pay tribute to her is what I'm referring to.
What, sticking my hand in a glass of ice
Yeah, that whole
for an
thing.
hour?
Yeah, like
Okay, according to the people I was in the magical Discord with, she was mad at me, and I wanted to show that I was a good business partner by trying to apologize to her. And the way you apologize to Mab is through cold and pain. So and this was in fucking like March. So if it had still been winter, I would have just gotten my shoes on and gone for a walk out in the snow until I felt hypothermic and then walked back inside. But because at that point in time it was too warm, I took out a glass I took out a glass from the cupboard, I filled it full of ice, and I stuck my hand in for an hour until I started feeling physical pain. That's not really a stupid thing. That's me attempting to apologize to her in a way that she wasn't exactly appreciative of, but it makes logical sense because the way you apologize to Mab is through cold and pain. So I went for the most cold and painful thing I could do.
okay, but you fast tracked it, which I think upset her.
Yeah. According to the people I was in the Magic Discord with, attempting to ease the debt by causing myself pain was seen by her as trying to weasel out of it, which was not my intention. My intention was to show I'm a good business partner. I know I fucked up. Here, let me make amends. Although to be fair, Mab has not acted in a way that implies that she's upset. So I'm willing to believe that the people in that Magic Discord were just largely full of shit, and that Mab was just taking the opportunity to get more leverage over me because she's fucking Mab. And she's gonna do that. Which, to be fair, I don't fault her for because she's freaking Mab. One does not simply expect Mab to be kind because she doesn't do kind, she does rational. Which is exactly why I made the bargain with her and not Titania. Because unkind but rational is exactly my shit.
Respect to the queen.
Yeah.
Oh no, I meant you. Well, no, I obviously didn't. I'm sorry, the joke was there, but I obviously didn't.
Yeah, I know. You. Fuck you too, but yes, that's fair.
I'm sorry. Again, the joke was right there.
You had to, and I respect that you had to, but still, fuck you. Fuck
shall
you, completely applicable joke.
Yeah. We got 20
Jack-o'-lanterns.
Shall we? Jack-o'-lanterns.
Yeah.
Pick up your children! Yes, Salem, we're back!
Hey, it's the Sanderson sisters. I bet you're looking for the stage. Always.
Yeah, they've still got it. Although to be fair, I thought that Bette Midler's voice was a little bit too scratchy in that first line, but it might just be she was, getting her mojo back, for lack of a better word. Lol. Anyway, next thing. Unless you had a thing. You're muted, by the way, in case you didn't know. I'll wait until you come back.
No, I know I was muted. I muted it because I was moving. I was getting the next thing ready. last thing.
Okay. That's fine. Any closing thoughts on the Hocus Pocus 2 trailer?
Again, Hocus Pocus is not really anything I'm like super into.
Mhm.
It looks good. I hope it is good. But I'm not like jumping over the moon or anything over this.
Yeah, no, me either. But I'm glad that it's getting a worthy sequel instead of a sequel where they just phone it in for a cash grab. Or it appears to be a worthy sequel. It could crash and burn horribly, but I would prefer not to, because
Yeah.
I like the more serious magical angle. I like the three of them seem to be back on form and everything, and that's cool. So yeah, this at the very least makes me wish it was Halloween already.
Yeah.
Of course, I always
3 goddamn
basically wish
days.
that it was Halloween.
3 goddamn days since 4th of July, and motherfuckers are still lighting off fireworks.
Yep, that's. I've had
They did it a
fireworks
month
happen.
prior to.
Yeah, it's like I think they just want explosions for the sake of explosions, which can't fault them for.
We didn't do them this year, unfortunately.
No, us either. My friend Nick got drunk and set some off though. He drunk dialed me afterwards and told me about it.
Yeah. Well, obviously reasons is because I was like super sick and we didn't actually we didn't really plan ahead and stuff. We were all busy and stuff, so
Yeah.
dude, Monday was horrible for me.
Yep. Brainstormer
Anyway.
was not having a good day. And
Oh, no, good.
To be fair, I bet. Go ahead.
I was not having a good 1, 2, 3, 4 days.
Yeah, you weren't having a good week, basically.
No, I was not.
And to be fair, I was very depressed for like the last week or so as well, and I don't really even know why. So there's that too. I honestly wonder if it doesn't have something to do with Mab, because ever since summer started, I've been fucking miserable inextricably, and part of me wonders if
Well, it is super.
Yeah. Part of me wonders if tying myself to her makes my personal energy wax and wane like with the seasons. So there is that, and no, I'm not complaining if that is the case, because I've never even liked summer anyway, because I'm not a go outside and have fun sort of person. I'm a stay inside and read sort of person. So there's that. And
I'm doing both, honestly.
Yeah.
Although lately, mainly because again weather and also sick, I've been kind of forced to stay inside most of the time. So
yeah. And
dude, we
it's
got hit by
fucked with
a word. Like I can't remember
with your sleep schedule.
Yeah,
Because you can't go for your walks that you like going for.
I haven't gone on a walk in years, actually. Well, no, that's actually a lie. I went on a walk a few months ago.
I was gonna say, because I remember you telling me when you did, because I've been ever since you've had this new bout of sleep schedule issues. I've been getting on you. Maybe you have too much energy because you need to go for a walk.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
yes, I realize that makes me a dick, but I'm gonna give my friends advice for what they should do when they're not feeling well, because that's
Right.
my friendship obligations and so on. But anyway, next thing.
Yeah. So this is. I was just browsing YouTube one day, and I just came across this Batman and Superman Battle of the Super Sons trailer debut. And yeah, it's like it just surprised me, and I thought, oh, we could cover this. So, it'd be like some nice to like palate cleanse our stuff of like the stupid.
Yeah.
I would okay. So if you guys don't know, Super Sons was a comic series that told the story of Jonathan Kent and Damian Wayne, who were both the biological sons of Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, who were Superman and Batman, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
There's a like I said,
Back
there was
when
a comic
Jonathan
series.
Kent wasn't insufferable.
Yeah, it was actually just a kid. And he, from what I've heard, unfortunately, I haven't been able to find the comic series that I assume this is based on. I've heard the series is quite good.
Yeah, everyone I've ever talked to about it says Super Sons is one of the best books they've read in years. I don't have any skin in the game myself because Batman and Superman aren't really my characters. But I'm glad that it was a good series for those that do like those characters.
Yeah. So I don't think I have anything else to say.
Banana?
I do have some thoughts on this. Yeah, and I'll bring them up as we go along. So, Banana.
Mm-hmm. Banana.
This is the.
Welcome to the Batcave.
Oh, that's the Batmobile and the Batcave.
Is that John? I assume that's John because Damian's a little bit of an asshole.
Yeah, that's John.
I like the irony that John Kent is a fanboy of Batman. Never mind that his dad is freaking Superman.
I mean, to be fair, like when you
Cute.
grow up with your dad being like you don't really see your dad as you wouldn't really see your dad as like a superhero, like even in professional, like where he's just dad, right?
Yeah.
So I totally get it.
Yeah, no, it's very cute. I just find it a little bit ironic because presumably John has powers too, and it's like he has flight, super strength, all that business, and doesn't but he idolizes the guy with no powers and just gadgets, which
I want
props
to say this.
younger John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to say this. I kind of like the art style.
It reminds me a little bit of like Young Justice.
Well, no, it's 3D animation, but it's doing like that kind of cell shading thing, like
Yeah.
that.
It's not hand drawn, but
it has it does kind of look it in some way.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look bad though. Like it doesn't look cheaply made, which in terms of these type of things, it could always be that, it could always come across like that,
Yeah. And I already like John Kent a dozen times more than I like him in the modern series because his fanboyism is very cute and relatable.
Yeah.
Banana?
Plus the actor who's voicing him, well, one sounds like a kid.
Yeah.
And just has a life to him,
Yeah.
Like
He's geeking out like any kid would if he were all of a sudden standing in the fucking Batcave.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we?
Banana.
Banana.
Who's the new kid?
John, this is Batman's son, Damian.
Well, he's obviously not invulnerable.
Reminds me of us when we first met. I was nice.
What are you doing, alien?
That is so good. That really is. Like, it's so interesting because they have those dynamics. We get to see kind of a different dynamic between both fathers and sons. But I think, in a way, they're kind of emulating their fathers and how they met.
Yeah, and of course John is the innocent one and Damien is the cynical one because John is the son of Clark Kent and Damian Wayne is the son of Bruce Wayne. So
Well, Damien. Well, okay, you could argue. There is an argument to be made that is somewhat genetic, but he was
it's
also
also because he was raised by the League of Shadows and yada yada. Yeah, I know.
assassins.
Yeah.
Did they ever make that clear on whether or not they're called the League of Shadows or Assassins? Because I think in the comics they're just called the League of Assassins. But I think
I think it's always been League of Shadows, but I might be wrong.
I think it depends on the media, honestly.
I obviously don't follow Batman comics that closely, so I might be wrong, but I think it's always been League of Shadows. I've never heard them called the League of Assassins.
It might be a more modern thing, honestly.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes sense that Damian Wayne is an edgy little nerd and tries to test out Superman's son's invulnerability upon first meeting him before he even says hello. And John, of course, is like, why would you do that? Because John is such an innocent cinnamon roll, like Clark, that he wouldn't consider doing that.
Yeah. I will say this: I don't like Damien's hair. Like I get, like it's anime kind of thing,
Yeah.
but that is
It's
some.
to show he's edgy, is all.
It's just it's big, man. It's like a fucking mohawk. And I've never pictured Damian Wayne having a mohawk.
Oh, he would. I because he's an edgy little shit.
I mean, okay, fair enough, but
I mean, I tried to dye my hair gray when I was 13, so I have no room to talk here.
I'd give it a couple more years. Actually, I'm sure pretty now you're getting gray hairs anyway.
Okay, fuck you. I mean, I hope so, but fuck you.
Overall, I don't really have anything to say. I do think the backgrounds are a little bland, but that could just because of the scenes they're showing.
Yeah, it might just be the scene.
I'm willing to be a little leeway on that.
Lenient.
Yes, lenient.
Yeah, the expression would either be you're willing to be lenient or you're willing to give leeway. They don't. You mix them together there.
Yeah, I'm willing to be lenient simply because I think there's a specific context of why these scenes look like this, like the backgrounds. That we don't have yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just hope there is more like kind of dynamic, colorful places they'll go. You know, because it's a comic book movie and they're using animation, and you know you're not really limited by animation except for like budget.
Yeah, you can animate them doing whatever as long as you can actually animate it. So yeah.
Say that again, Dom?
I said you can animate them doing whatever as long as you can actually animate it.
Right. Oh, hey, Conrad. It's Telium29, who's the Super Sons mega fan. I think I saw some of the videos they did of that.
Yeah,
series.
yeah, I know. I know. Tilium swears by Super Sons in the same way that Nerd Wonder swears by Spider-Man. Or Brainstormer swears by Superman, but yeah. I've heard other people though also say that Super Sons was good. It's not just a Italian thing.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to say so far, so shall we, Banana?
We shall banana.
It's taking over the globe.
It is time. It is time. It is time. It is time. It is time.
Come on, farm boy. We gotta go save our dads.
Starro.
The-
At least he's getting more recognition, honestly. It's a really cool villain.
yeah, good.
Like,
good.
part of
good
people
for-
say he's almost on par with Darkseid. If I wanted to be really like,
well, I mean, Starro was the first villain that the Justice League faced when they first came together. So yeah, I like Damien's little quip about Farm Boy though for John. That's cute.
that's very Batman and Superman.
It's it not only is it in character, but it's also hilarious, and it's the kind of quip that you could see kids giving each other. So yeah, and of course, John is too like naive and cutesy to be offended by it because he's just that naive and cutesy, just like Clark.
I don't know why, but I'm also. Oh, okay. So, Chrononauts, they've done this before. Young Justice, right?
No,
Well, no, Starro Tech in the first season.
oh yeah, they had Starro in Young Justice, but they never had Damien or John in there.
Well, they're introducing them. They're introducing them now in the series. I think. I don't know. I haven't. Honestly, the newer seasons of Young Justice haven't interested me. Yeah, Starro takes over, and similarly must fight. They must fight him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so far my takeaway from this has been this is very cute.
I also want to say,
No, go
I
ahead.
wonder who's doing the animation, but it kind of reminds me a bit of Iron Man Armored Adventures.
A little bit, yeah.
If anyone remembers that show, kudos to you, because I grew up watching that on Nicktoons, and I thought it was a really good show.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we?
Yep, banana.
No.
All right, Justice Dweebs. Let's do this thing.
I'm interested. I don't think we'll ever really do like a review of this, to be honest, just because like we would have to buy it, like in DVD form. And if I'm gonna do it, I'm just gonna enjoy it myself. No doubt, I'm just gonna enjoy it overall.
Yeah, and I'm not buying it. Like if I see it on TV or on somewhere for free, that's one thing. But I'm like, the only thing I'm likely to buy from DC Animated in the near future is the new Constantine House of Mystery movie, and even that's a little bit iffy because they changed the voice actor.
I know they had like good DC showcases out there.
Mm. They did do a DC showcase for Death of the Endless recently, and that was good.
That was like a year ago, right?
I thought so. But I finally saw it on YouTube. Somebody posted it, and it was good.
Music was amazing in that. See, so we kind of have stuff, just to the FYI, we have stuff planned for this upcoming Sunday. for 173.
Yeah, we've got 3 so far. We're looking for a 4th thing.
Yeah. I might bring this up for one thing there. I'm not gonna really spoil it here. Just you guys gonna have to wait for that.
Mhm.
But yeah, Super Sons looks pretty good. Kind of want to see if I could find some behind the scenes stuff for it, like kind of gauge whether or not like the people working on it were like super into working on it or not.
Mhm.
You know. Plus, I like watching. I like looking at behind the scenes stuff. It's always cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom. Now fuck off.